So, confirmation of the two quarter-finals in Paris next weekend. The All Blacks against Ireland first up, and then the following day, South Africa against France. Guys, let's talk firstly the All Blacks Ireland. How's that one shaping, Jeff?
It was always going to end up here, right? It's taken us 5 weeks to get there, but ultimately, look, Ireland were great. You can't argue with their form through their pool play. They beat South Africa. Look, South Africa didn't kick a couple of goals you would have expected them to maybe have kicked, and they may have won that game, but Ireland have come out. They demolished Scotland. They're going in with all sorts of confidence as the #1 team in the world, but they're trying to do something they've never done before, and that's get beyond a quarter-final. And the challenge for them is pure and simply going to be they're up against an All Black team which is coming in as an underdog, which is unusual for them, but also, other than the concern around Tyrell Lomax, is going to be fully fit, is going to be primed and ready to go. And on where they've got to from the game against France, Mills, I'm pretty confident that they can go out there and take it to Ireland.
Oh, I think there's plenty of hunger too, considering sort of what's happened in the past and results, back home in New Zealand and obviously in Ireland as well. But Ireland are living up to that expectation at the moment. They've probably been the most consistent team in terms of the pool play, how they played in terms of the intensity against South Africa as well. I'm looking forward to this because we'll be a lot better in terms of our attack against Ireland than what Scotland produced, but it's going to come down to discipline as well because, man, they are clinical at the moment, and it's going to be a biggie.
What have you seen in the Irish game that the All Blacks can maybe exploit?
Whether it's exploit, I think the one thing that Ireland do is they are very good with ball in hand. If you're going to exploit something, I think in some ways you can try and pin them in your own half and maybe not play too much rugby. Now, we've obviously tried to extend our attack out, Mills. I think that's a concern if you do that against Ireland. We saw what Scotland tried to do, and they turned the ball over and gave away penalties. I think if you can control territory, I think the space in the backfield, because their defensive line is so aggressive in coming forward, it just continues. It's very flat. They put their halfback in the front line as well. There are spaces to kick to. So if you win the game in the air, and if you kick well, all of a sudden forcing them to play from their own territory, I think that'll be foreign to them. So that's what I'll be exploiting. Now, does that go against some of our natural instincts and the fact that we want to play attacking rugby? But the other thing we have to factor in is there's forecast rain on the day in Paris on next Saturday. So that could, the context of the game could change significantly.
I mean, are we comfortable without having the ball? We want to play an up-tempo. You talked about the weather, but are we comfortable putting it down there and backing our defence? I look at it a little bit different. It's actually trying to attack their strengths, and their strengths to me are their 9 and 10 combination. How do you get them off their rhythm? Do you hold them a little bit longer, niggle them, just get them sort of rattled a little bit and sort of play the mind games with Johnny Sexton and also Gibson Park, because they're the key to them sort of getting that sort of flow. So I think there'll be a lot of effort from the All Blacks to really attack their strengths, and that is a big part of it too.
Scale of 1 to 10, confidence level, Jeff?
That's a hard one, that one. That's a hard one. That's trying to get me in trouble. Look, I'm confident because this All Black team is not the same team they played last year. It's a vastly different. The changes in personnel and the form that a lot of these guys are coming into. I mean, if you go back and look, the fact that Beauden Barrett started at 10 last year in the final test match. They had Falau Fakatava off the bench. Akira Ioane started. There was no Scott Barrett. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle. No Ethan de Groot. No Tyrell Lomax. So the pieces of the puzzle are significantly different. How confident I'm optimistic. The fact that I believe they were well and truly good enough, and I honestly believe I think we will win this game.
Mills.
I think we are. I'm like you.
You can't just hand that to me and then not give Mills a chance.
I'm optimistic as well because I think we are really settled in that. There's a lot of sort of in the last couple of years trying to find guys to suit those positions. I think our game plan's really coming to play. But man, from what we've seen from this Irish side, they're just on a different level. So it's like it is knockout football, and this is what you kind of want. You're optimistic, but you're still a little bit unsure as well.
Well, it's a blockbuster on Saturday, but on Sunday, another one. France, South Africa. How do you sort this one out?
Well, France, I think, have coped well without Antoine Dupont, and they're going to have to, I would say. I mean, if he comes back, that'll be a significant lift for them and giving them some some optimism themselves. I really like what they've done since they've beaten us in the first round. Like it wasn't great against Uruguay, but they played there like their third team. So overall, I give them a real shot, and it's just going to be huge for South Africa in terms of the way that they're going to play and the selection they're going to make at first five. That's going to determine for me a lot about who they are and what they do and what they've done in the past, Mills. Handré Pollard has been that guy who has led them to World Cup success. This is knockout rugby. This is taking threes. This is not kicking for the corner. So I look at this and I think the Springboks, I think their chances will come down to selection. I'll be surprised too if they go for a 6-2 bench or a 7-1 bench. They need to give themselves some cover in the back line in this test match, because if they don't, I think they could come back and hurt them.
And Mills, when you play against the Springboks, you know precisely what you're going to get.
Yeah, absolutely. The only downside at this stage is the fact that they've had a week off. How are they going to come into? You talked about the selection issues that they've kind of got in terms of the 10s and that. How are they going to come out of this? France are looking good because you've got to start well, and the reason why you've got to start well is because of that home crowd. They are magnificent at the moment, and if they don't start well coming off the sort of the bye, then they can find themselves in big trouble.
And they kick great goals as well. I mean, they've got a magnificent kicker. Defensively, they're really strong, France. I think there's some things in their game which will really stress the Springboks. So look, I'm thinking with all that home field advantage, I'm picking that France, and we said this before the tournament, and we talked about it. I said in particular, I thought France was going to be able to get through this. It's going to be incredibly tight, though.
Well, it sounds like you guys are thinking the first game may well be the last game of this tournament. The All Blacks against France in the final. But in the meantime, 2 great quarterfinals to look forward to.